It's Victory Monday, and on this Victory Monday, Cody and I discuss what went right on both sides of the ball that led to the Houston Texans getting the dub versus the Saints.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Victory. Welcome in, everybody, to a Victory Monday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman, and of course, joining the show as always is my man, your Texans credential media member, Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. If you are new to the Locked On Texans podcast, be sure to do a couple of things. Subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you to our returning listeners and viewers out there who knew we were picking the Houston Texans to beat the New Orleans Saints. Thank you for coming back as we continue to talk Texans, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. More, we're going to talk about the Saints game, of course, but what went right defensively? What went right offensively? And when I look at the entirety of the game, Cody, before I give it over to you, I think the Houston Texans did three things that stood out and led to a win. Number one, they took advantage of the red zone opportunities. And because of that, they jumped out to an early 17-10 lead going into halftime. And they was able to sustain that lead throughout the game. It was difficult. It was hard. The Saints made it tough on them at the end, but overall, they had a very good opportunity to bend down break defense. We'll get to the defense. But I thought early on for Houston, and CJ Stroud, who bounced back perfectly from throwing his first interception. And I mean, the interception, and they gave it right back to him, right? And so that's that Southern hospitality. But he went out there and scored 2 TDs.
Really quick, I just want to say this. This is how you know you got something special in CJ. How in the world do you record your first career interception? The streak is over, I believe. Sunday he made 190 passing attempts because the interception came early. But John, that's how you know you have a special quarterback. You throw your first interception, your wide receiver Nico Collins get the fumble, and not only do you bounce back as a rookie, but you end up scoring on the same drive, man. Yeah, I'm just like, CJ, come on, man.
6 plays later, Cody, when you look at the Houston Texans, of course, CJ Stroud had a lot to do with it. Getting the dub on Sunday, 2 of the TDs, 14 of the 20 points came from CJ Stroud's touchdowns. So he played a big role into it. But when we look at the victory overall, what went right for Houston offensively?
First and foremost, man, Dalton Schultz. And John, when you look at the production of Dalton, not just in this game, but over the last 3 weeks, slowly but surely, that offensive line was getting healthier and healthier. And I go back to the start of the season. The start of the season where he only had 47 yards on 7 catches, and everybody was questioning, even you, where was Dalton Schultz? I'm not seeing Dalton Schultz be tight end number 1. And look, I would throw myself in there as well because I remember, I think it was after the game against the Indianapolis Colts, I believe I'm not mistaken, where we came on this show and we talked about the possibility of whether or not Brevin Jordan is going to start. No, that was the Jacksonville game. If Brevin Jordan was going to start taking over as this team's number 1 tight end. However, I always went back to how depleted that offensive line was and how much they was using him in pass protection, in run protection. Now that offensive line has gotten healthy and they have a starting 5 out there that they trust. And that is part of the reason why we are seeing Dalton Schultz over the last 3 games go 168 yards on 14 catches and 3 touchdowns. Yesterday, Dalton Schultz was a huge X factor for the Houston Texans on that offensive side of the ball. 61 yards, four catches, and 1 touchdown. And of course, that touchdown came, which you just finished talking about, with the Texans having an opportunity to take advantage of the red zone. And I know we're going to talk a lot about CJ Stroud today, tomorrow, and throughout this whole entire bye week. But there's one thing that the Texans have in Dalton Schultz that they didn't have probably since, I don't even know when. Well, Jordan Akins to a certain degree, but you finally have the perfect pairing of a good quarterback and a very good tight end. And that's part of the reason why we've seen the Houston Texans go down there and take advantage of that red zone opportunity that they had.
I think one thing that when I look at what went right for Houston offensively on this Monday show from Sunday's game, to clarify that, the run game. Last week, it was 20-0.
You called
20 carries for Dameon Pierce, 0 carries to Devin Singletary, and Dameon Pierce wasn't as successful as he'd like to be. Dameon Pierce wasn't as successful as the team would like him to be, let alone the fans would like him to be. And so when I look at one thing that went right for Houston offensively heading into this game, it was getting Devin Singletary involved, and it was finding a way to get the running game going, right? Remember, I had that conversation, like find creative ways, giving Dameon Pierce more giving Devin Singletary more carries, help the Houston Texans build on those drives, get those first downs, make those first downs a whole lot hell of it easier for this young team. And when you look at what Devin Singletary was able to do, I cannot take away how good the blocking of the left side of the offensive line was in terms of being able to run block. Devin Singletary got his bigger gains coming from that left side of the ball. Early in the game, Dameon Pierce got some of his bigger gains coming from that left side of the ball, and that's where we see like Laremy Tunsil and Titus Howard. And so I think those two things combined, giving Devin Singletary, who I think right now should be the lead back for Houston because of how shifty he can be and how easy it is for him to hit those holes. Getting him involved in this game was important, very important. And also having the veteran presence and another week of that offensive line gelling together with Titus Howard playing the left guard still, having him come back and Laremy Tunsil, them combining, I thought that they did a very good job of creating lanes, creating holes for their running backs throughout the game, especially in the first half, where that offense wasn't as predictable as we had seen it. I thought that in the second half, that was a different case. The Houston Texans were playing with a lead, and I would like to see them continue to be explosive when they have those leads. We've seen it before, the last two games, not as much so, but I can't take away what went right offensively when I look at how good the running game looked this week compared to last week. On the ground, Houston ran for 120 yards, 3.9 yards per carry. However, they were very effective early in the game of creating opportunities for the offense to not have that much stress on them on third down situations and moving the chain. So I was very proud of how Houston went out there and attacked. You saw X Hutchinson get involved in the run game, 2 carries for 15 yards, almost scored a touchdown. Mike Boone got his first carry, I believe, of the year for 11 yards. So it was everybody was hands on deck, getting that ball going on the ground. And then CJ, just the Dalton Schultz touchdown, and there should have been another one, but the first one was nice. But that Robert Woods touchdown was nice.
Oh, yeah.
The anticipation, the threading of the needle to get the pass there, everything you want out of a quarterback, because if he throws that ball a little too late, that's a pick. You got 2 defenders closing in on that. So to see CJ just make a throw like that, get Houston in the end zone, taking advantage of their red zone opportunities, guys, that is what you need to see, what you want to see out of an offense that may not have a number one playmaker, but they got a number one quarterback, which is something Houston hasn't had in the past couple of seasons. Super proud of how this team won today, on Sunday. And offensively, Bobby Sloyd, especially in their first half, just was consistent. More so in the first half, he was consistent. And them boys grew up. That was a tough win, very tough win. It could have went the opposite way. as we've seen it last week versus the Atlanta Falcons, but they pulled it out.
One last thing before moving on, you talk about playmakers. I do want to say what went right for the Texans is Nico Collins bouncing back, 80 yards on 4 catches in yesterday's game. He surpassed his career high. He currently stands at 547 yards on the season. To your point about Bobby Sloyd, man, I've also loved watching the growth of that man as an offensive coordinator. What I love most about Bobby Sloyd, he isn't afraid to change and make adjustments. And that's something that the Houston Texans probably haven't had throughout their whole entire existence as a franchise, especially when you had the talent like when you had Deshaun and those boys, but you had Tim Kelly. I just go back and I take a look at that regime, and I say one of the things that hurt that regime was the fact that they were stubborn. They did not want to change and make adjustments for anything. Bobby Sloyd, we are 6 games into the regular season, and we have seen Bobby Sloyd make major adjustments at least 3 times so far. And one of them, John, to your point, was getting Devin Singletary more involved in a rushing attack. And that's part of the reason why the Texans were able to score on the 4th best defensive team in the league.
Yeah, and also to go back to the running game, last week versus the Atlanta Falcons, Houston only picked up first downs 3 times running the ball. Sunday, they picked up first downs 7 times running the ball. It was totally different out there, and I think giving Devin Singletary those snaps helped Houston win yesterday's game. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is fast and an easy way to buy all tickets this year and moving forward. You got sports, music, comedy, theater, all near you, all on Game Time with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So listen, you can't beat last-minute ticket deals. You can't beat flash deals. You can't beat zone deals. You can see the view from your seat before you buy it, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show up, so your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Hidden fees bother me. Every time I look up, it's a different fee. I don't even know these many fees. I'm not Michael Weston. So Game Time takes that out of it, and you don't have to deal with it. And you buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Can you beat that, guys? I don't think you can. Also, with Game Time guarantee, that means you'll get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL, Locked On NFL, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Guys, I'm also here to tell you about PrizePicks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. For Monday night's football game, do you believe Dak Prescott is going to throw more than or less than 257.5 passing yards? Simple click, boom, boom, more than, less than, and you keep it pushing. Do you think Tony Pollard is going to run for 68.5 rushing yards on the day? More than, less than, 2 clicks, boom, boom, and you keep it pushing. And also, you can win up to 25 times your money this football season. You just select 22 or more players. Again, pick the more or less stat projections and place your entry. Go to prospects.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prospects.com/LockedOnNFL. Use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Monday installment of Locked On Texans, as John and I continue to break down the Houston Texans 20-13 victory over the New Orleans Saints. And John, let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. And when we look at what went right for the Texans, One of the things that went right for them on defense was the return of Shaq Griffin. This is a man who finished the game with 6 tackles, 4 solo hits, and he came up huge in the fourth quarter in stopping the Saints from scoring, because there were several times where the Saints got deep within the Texans' territory, but he was one of the guys that kept New Orleans from getting into the end zone, especially on their final offensive drive of the game, where he was holding on for dear life to Alvin Kamara's leg that was able to force that crucial 4th down. As a matter of fact, after that game, I was talking to Shaq Griffin. I asked him about that play, what went into him getting that stop on Kamara, and he said, look, during his time in Seattle, he played against Alvin on several different occasions, and he understands how good, how great, and how shifty Alvin is once he gets on the outside. And he said he just had to hold on for dear life, because he knew if he got that stop, that definitely was going to work in favor of the Houston Texans. Shaq Griffin, once again, he has been phenomenal in stepping up in the absence of Derek Stingley Jr. because, look, we saw this offense struggle without him last week against the Atlanta Falcons. You get him back following his hamstring injury, and we saw that defense take a step forward.
Yeah. Also, I think what went right, guys, the best linebacker on this team.
Oh, the best?
Blake Cashman.
Oh!
The best.
I don't think I'm going to disagree with that either.
Blake Cashman versus the Saints, 15 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass deflections, 1 quarterback hit. And when we go back to that play before the interception where Derek Carr, I think, threw it to Alvin Kamara on the sideline, it was going that way. If you go back and look at that play, Blake Cashman cut off the initial read, and then he came down to cover Alvin Kamara on that play. Whoever the running back was on that play, I'll go back and watch the tape on it. But I think Blake Cashman is just efficient as a linebacker. And one of the things that he does well is just being everywhere at once, it seems like. And he's been doing that throughout the year. But no Denzel Perryman, right? And this was a team that is very thin at linebacker. This was just a breakout game for the vet Blake Cashman. Also, the Houston Texans did a very good job of getting pressure on the quarterback. The Texans had 26 pressures against the Saints, which is tied for 3rd most by any team in the game this season, according to Next Gen Stats. And so you look at that, Will Anderson, almost had, I think, 2 sacks.
This was his breakout game.
He had a very good game, I know that one play where he rushed and then took a step back and broke off the screen that was going to Alvin Kamara. Like, he disrupted that entire drive, and I think that drive started with Will Anderson getting a tackle for loss, which forced, instead of a 2nd and short, it was a 2nd and long because they lost yards. And so what Will Anderson is able to do, man, he's just able to really impact that D-line as of right now in the run game, making sure that he can squeeze down the O-line and make a play. I think once he gets a defensive tackle, you'll see a much better pass rusher from Will Anderson. But what I'm seeing out of him right now is he's somebody that takes stopping the run seriously. He got involved early and often in stopping the run, which is great. And they held the New Orleans Saints to 7 yards less than their rushing yards per game. They held them to 89 yards. The Saints typically run for 96 on the ground. So it's not a large margin, it's a small margin, and that small margin is the margin of victory of or error in the NFL. So kudos to Will Anderson. The Saints tried to go back and test Steven Nelson again at the end of the game.
No, why they did that.
Give me that. He got his 3rd interception on the year, and I think Houston defensively was just flying around. They had some errors. They allowed Derek Carr to throw for his season high with 353 yards, but they did a very good job of bending and not breaking. The New Orleans Saints didn't get that many opportunities in the red zone, and even when they did, they were not able to take advantage of those opportunities in the red zones. No score in the red zones at all for the New Orleans Saints. Proud of this Houston Texans defense because they did something this week that they didn't do last week. Houston lost the time of possession, especially in the second half. You can see them kind of getting gassed at one point, but they made plays and they were able to stop that team from scoring. It's not a good team at scoring the football. The Texans, I believe, held them to under their points per game. But overall, stopping the run was one of them. Blake Cashman was another reason. Shaq Griffin was a big reason. And just seeing them fly, hit bodies was a huge part of why Houston won on Sunday. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Add your job. Once you add your job to LinkedIn, add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you need to interview and hire. This is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Cody, when we talk about what went right for the Houston Texans defensively, did the home crowd not show up on Sunday?
Look, let me just say this.
Did they not show up?
You already know.
Did they not show out?
Gold.
Did they not show
when
out?
I tell you, I was so happy to see Texans fans outnumber the opposing team's fans. Thank you. And continue to show out and support this team.
You saw several times where it felt like the play wasn't able to come in and they wasn't able to get the communication to Derek Carr, or they were throwing a snap count.
Finally.
You saw the Houston Texans. They was at church. They caught the 8 a.m. service, and they looked at their neighbor, and they said, "Neighbor, we got a game to go to today."
Well, they waited until church was over because Houston fans going to come late. Don't know if it's traffic or what. Don't know. Because at the start of the game, I was a little bit concerned, especially after the coin toss. All you heard was, who that? Who that? Who that said they're going to beat them? Like, you heard the who that chant. But around halfway through that first quarter, Texans fans started filing inside NRG Stadium, man. And look, as someone who covers this team and knows how hard it's been to support this organization over the last 2-3 seasons, I was happy to see Texans fans support their team and their young quarterback and their young head coach, man. Keep it going, Texans fans. Don't stop. Don't stop.
No, but I absolutely think that is something that went right for Houston. A good home field advantage. A good, this is something that how many games have the Houston Texans sold out in the last 3 seasons?
Ain't been many.
It hasn't been a lot of opportunities for Houston to have a real home field advantage. And also I like to add, you know why? Because you got a reason to come to the games. We talked about that yesterday. And you as a fan, fans out there listening or watching, giving your team that home field advantage, that helps you win your 3rd game of the season earlier than what you've won in the past. Right? If you go back and look for Houston, the Texans' 3rd win by the season going back to 2020, week 11, 2021, week 15, 2022, week 18. Last year, the last game of the play.
And that was a victory. That was a victory, even though, nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it, but it ended up working out in their favor.
It was a double victory, but when you look at Houston this year, they got their 3rd win of the season by week 6.
At the bye. Bro, this team is 500 at the bye.
At the bye. Something that Houston hasn't been since going
19, maybe? Yeah, it got to be
24-0. So I think Houston giving their team a real home field advantage, it works both ways. They gave you a reason to come out and support. You came out there and you supported that team wholeheartedly, full like the Texans should be doing, filling that NRG Stadium and rocking, and you saw the result of it. So kudos to the fans for getting out there. That was something that I talked about with you, that I talked about with Ross Jackson, that I talked about with everybody. make sure you don't allow the New Orleans Aints to come out there and blow y'all out the
Can't
way.
call
And
them
they
the
did
Aints
that.
no more. They
And
won the
they did
chip.
that.
That joke is invalid now.
All right, listen, not for this week.
Hey, y'all, you know what? Y'all can have
Not this week.
Y'all can have
Not this week. Cody, what else went right for the Houston Texans on Sunday?
Well, first off, John, we already talked about it a little bit in the first segment, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. The left side of that offensive line, Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard. The one attribute that a lot of people always question when you look at those two guys, even though they are by far top 10, top 5 players on this roster, the one thing people always question a little bit was their ability in the rushing attack, their ability to run block. But I think Sunday was the perfect example of showing that they can actually get the job done. Now, with that being said, the left side, Devin Singletary, Dameon Pierce, they got a lot of positive yardage rushing to the left side of the ball. Not so much on the right side, which was very surprising because when you look back at the first 5 games of the season, that was their bread and butter, rushing to the right side. Now you got to look at it from a standpoint moving forward. Bobby Sloyd, D'Amico Ryans, they got to find a way to get the left and the right side on one accord, because I believe if they do that and you continue to split the rushing attempts between Singletary and Dameon Pierce, I think this rushing attack is going to get better and better as the week goes on. And hopefully, I think at this point, Dameon Pierce might be in his head a little bit because we saw him get frustrated early in the first half, but hopefully he could take this bye week to get himself back to the player that he was last year. And that's definitely going to make this rushing attack even better through these finals. I think it's like 11 games of the season.
Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure that you give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12 and follow the Locked On Texans page at Locked On Texans as well.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on all your social media platforms at Cody Davis _24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS _24. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you guys did not see me eat dubs today. It's because I'm on a low-fat diet these days.
The Texans took all that Old Bay seasoning, took all that slap your mama seasoning.
The doctor said, he wanted me, just to, getting better.
Chill out on the crawfish balls.
So he put me on a low-fat diet, so that's why I'm not eating dubs. Because when you eat dubs, they have a lot of calories, So, I gotta watch my figure, So I just wanted to throw that out there.
What figure?
The figure that God want me to have.
I figure you saying that because the Saints lost. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see y'all on Tuesday. H-Town, be proud of your team. Peace.